Perfect.
All right, welcome everybody to the first guest episode of the New Hamburg Board of Trade podcast. Thanks, Dave Bender of BW Feed, which you can sort of see through my curtain here way in the background. He's our first guest, first victim, a very brave soul. So welcome, Dave. And of course, we've got Gina Rattan of Systems Plus and the past president of the New Hamburg Board of Trade with us today. So
Hi,
thanks for
everyone.
being here.
Yes, thanks, Dave.
Yeah. Dave, I'll ask you to get into that wonderful baby blue Pinto instead of a DeLorean. Take us back to when you first got involved at BW Feed.
So just a brief history of BW Feed. It was started by Earl and Fern Bender and Cecil and Rita Wagler. And it started as a retail store and warehouse out of the store where Heritage Pet and Garden currently is located. So it was just strictly a bag warehouse. And that was 1966. So I was 4 years old. And so I was running around in there, after school, or when I was young, I just go in and run around and climb up on top of the bags and do that kind of thing. So that's kind of was my first exposure. In 1972, BW bought the current feed mill that we're at. There is a full history of milling in New Hamburg on BW's website that goes through that building or that location, but 72 it started there, and at that point, I would have been 10 years old. I was again hanging around playing there, and just kind of grew into it. I think I probably actually did some meaningful work when I was 12 in that, and have been doing it ever since. So I think there was a time where I was convinced I wanted to do anything but be in the feed business. Because in the old days it was dirty and dusty, and it still has those days, but changed my mind at some point, and I've been doing this in one form or another since 1984.
You're pretty good around the mixer then, eh?
I know the mixer, I know underneath the mixer, I know the corners where the dust piles up, and I know where the old turbines are from the old, when it was water powered back in the day. So yeah, it's, some of that stuff is still in the basement.
I bet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of changes then throughout your career with BW. What do you think some of the bigger changes have been in terms of the feed production?
So from a feed production perspective, we have gone from back in the 80s, probably when I started working here full time, we thought a big day was producing 30 to 35 ton of feed a day, which is essentially almost one tractor trailer load a day.
Okay.
Currently, we've done a bunch of renovations throughout the 30 years I've been here, but we currently produce, in a 24-hour period, we'll produce probably between 200 and 250 ton a day. And so we're shipping out, 6 or 7 tractor trailer equivalents a day out of the old facility. So that has certainly changed from a volume perspective. Technology-wise, now we make about 80% of the feed with the click of a mouse. We've automated the processes at the mill. So that's been something. Our customer base has grown in size. So instead of farmers milking 20 or 30 cows, or having a hog farm where they have 50 sows farrow to finish, now we deal with farms that have, anywhere from 30 up to 400 or 500 cows on one site. We have
Are those mostly
sow
local
farms.
farms? So sorry.
Yeah, no, they will be, a lot of them are local. We've got some big farms just south of New Hamburg or surrounding New Hamburg, but, we're talking Innerkip, Stratford, those kinds of areas. But just the size of the operations at the farm level has gone up that we need to scale up so that we can service them. And so, that's what we have done to a point at the location downtown here, but we've reached our limits.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
touching on technology, the technology in those farms is astounding these days. The nutrition that goes into these animals, how has that changed in the last 30 years?
Well, I think it's just become, it's something that we have learned to do quicker and easier. Obviously, computers help because you can put in your parameters and allow the computer to do the balance. But most people may not understand that with livestock. Probably 90 or 95% of the livestock being fed out there is getting a balanced diet. So somebody actually looks at it. You have a nutritionist. They look at the ingredients. They look at your vitamins, they look at your minerals, and they say, this is what you should have at your stage of life, whether you're laying eggs or, you're a growing pig or a young dairy heifer that's, being raised to produce milk. There's specific requirements, and they've done the research on it. I know in my diet, nobody ever looks at it and balances it. They tell me I shouldn't eat as much, but nobody balances it and it says for your stage of life, this is what you should eat, and then they hand it to me in that front. So that's become one of the things that, from a nutrition perspective, that livestock has an advantage over most of us humans. I'm not sure we'd like to eat it if a nutritionist handed it to us all the time. So I think the other piece.
Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
The other piece of technology that is happening on farms is automation as well. Not many people understand it, but the largest autonomous vehicle manufacturer in the world is John Deere. It's just, they have adapted to it and, have needed to in some respects, but certainly, with drone technology and crop scouting and the equipment and robotic milkers and all of those kinds of things, the technology is very prevalent in the ag side.
Yeah, for sure. We've had self-driving tractors for years. They use the GPS and the farmer maps out the field and they turn exactly where they need to turn to plant in such and such a way. And now we're talking about this breaking leading edge technology of having it on the road. Of course, there's a lot more factors on the road, but the technology has existed on farms for a long, long time. And farmers are always eager to make their lives easier, as they should be. It's a tough job.
They've got a lot on their plate.
Yeah, that's right. So then what's one myth or misconception that you've got in the feed industry that you could dispel for us right now?
So one of the things that most people don't understand about the feed industry and producing commercial livestock and poultry feed is the fact that we are very much a recycler. We keep a lot of product out of landfill and stuff. So just a couple of examples is the ethanol industry. We've seen that grow in the last 20 years where they're taking corn, produce ethanol through a fermentation process, not unlike a distillery is essentially what it is. And they use starch out of the corn to fuel that ethanol process and create the alcohol or the ethanol that's used as gasoline. So what do you do with what's left over? And what is left over is everything but the starch. So it's a term called dried distiller's grains. And so we use distillers as a feed ingredient. There's lots of good value to it. And, we'll use, I don't know, 100 ton a week out of our mill for something like that. So, it's a case of utilizing something like that. A couple other examples, we use a product called bakery byproduct meal. So, over at Sobeys or No Frills, if they have bread that's left over or donuts or cookies that are outdated, what do you do with them? Some would throw them in the dumpster and get rid of them. But there are companies out there. There's one over by Mannheim. There's another one up in Wallenstein that what they do is they'll take that outdated product, they bring it in, they somehow remove it from packaging, and then blend it with, so we don't want all cookies one day and donuts the next and bread the next.
Right.
What they'll do is they'll bring it from different suppliers, they'll blend it, they'll dry it so that it's safe to use as a feed ingredient. But again, we use maybe 50 ton of that product. The third example is just an interesting one we started about a year ago. So there's a company in Elmira called Global Egg Solutions. So what they are is that it's a breaker factory. They'll bring in eggs, they crack them, and then sell it as liquid egg product. And you can buy a truckload of liquid egg, but what they also have is they've got a lot of eggshells. What do you do with eggshells? So at home, we put them in the green bin, but the shell itself is calcium carbonate. It's the same as limestone. So we feed a lot of limestone back to the hens because the hens need the calcium in order to create the eggshell. We end up feeding eggshells back to the hens. We bring it in, it gets dried, it gets treated so that it's, safe from salmonella and other microorganisms. So it goes through that process, but then we use it back as a feed ingredient. So, we do, a lot of that, which is something that most people would not understand.
A lot of recycling happening in that feed mill then, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great to hear because.
Yeah, it seems like a really agricultural kind of mindset, waste not, want not, use everything that's at your disposal.
Absolutely.
Really cool.
Yeah, and I think the grocery industry does get some negative imagery about, the stuff that goes in the dumpster at the end of the day. And it's fantastic to hear that that's largely untrue as well in terms of what we like to think about. We've got mills like VW and companies that are using that material because it's not bad. It's just past its peak freshness.
Well, and it's not just feed. If you expand that comment to the ag side, you have farms around with methane digesters.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, it's partly manure, but they will use green waste and those types of things. And they're constantly looking for truckloads of, if it's spoiled lettuce or, from the produce department, they'll take it and they can utilize that to help produce methane, which that, fuels a generator that creates electricity. And, so it's all part of, trying to make use of those products. And I think most of the grocery stores around would participate in a program similar to that.
Certainly.
Really cool. Yeah. So I guess we might switch gears a little bit here and go to what's mostly a hot topic these days as we are living through it. So we know you were considered an essential business during this pandemic. And I guess we're just curious about how you've adapted to the new circumstances that the pandemic has created for us as a company.
We have been, the doors have been open every day they should have been since the start of the pandemic because we are essential. If you want milk and cheese and eggs and the grocery shelves, we need to keep producing feed in order to keep them producing and keep the animals looked after. So that is certainly something. What we did initially was we locked down our retail. We did curbside pickup to try and avoid, any extra contact. we tried to segregate our different areas of employees. So salespeople were working from home and we're not leaving for a while. Our production team, we run 2 different shifts. And so our morning shift would come in and do their shift and they'd leave at 2:30, and our afternoon shift wouldn't start till 3 o'clock. So we'd have some separation so that, we were looking after that to keep that separation. We didn't have any overlap. So that was something. Our truckers they'd come in and chat and come in the office and talk to their dispatch. They no longer come in the mill. They've got a receiving area where they come to. We actually call it the takeout window, but our transportation manager, he's got a window in his office. We built a step so the guys could get up, look in the window, and have a conversation with him there. And we, at the shipping side of the mill, which is off of Peel Street, we've added a coffee station, a microwave, just some of the creature comforts that, they can still get their coffee when they're in and have a place to get in and warm up for this time of year anyways. We also separated, we've got, this isn't the fun thing, but there's 3 different bathrooms in the building. So, the truckers use the one, production people use another, and office staff has their own. So, those kinds of things just to try and avoid, the contact and the cross-contamination. So it's made it challenging. We had some issues with our suppliers where some suppliers ended up being shut down. So all of a sudden, you maybe were short of an ingredient and you had to scramble. But as a rule, they were all considered essential as well and figured out a way to keep it going. So
Absolutely.
Extra headaches, but I think we all have to do our part.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always challenging when you're working in more of a manufacturing setting to make sure that everything's safe and effective still, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you still need to get the throughput and the output.
Oh, absolutely.
Out the door. So
Yeah.
And shout out to our employees. Everybody bought into the program. Everybody did the right thing. Our message to them was, we can keep you safe while at work, but it also matters what you do when you leave work and who you're in contact with. And
absolutely.
We've had a couple of situations where somebody says, well, I'm not feeling well, or I may have come in contact with a situation. At that point, if anybody did that, we kind of said, okay, you stay home, go get tested. We'll talk once you get your results back. But yeah, if we've had a situation like that, we've tried to be proactive as much as we can.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So do you think that the pandemic has changed the future of BW?
I think we are certainly more aware of traffic flows and interaction that way. I think to some respect, I think we, some of the farmers, or maybe production agriculture and, food production side of it has come to the forefront, because I think it's important that we control our food supply as a province, as a country, because in a situation like that, we want to make sure that we know where it's coming and that we have enough, because, we want to see a riot, just have empty shelves at the grocery store. So I think, it maybe has become more of an essential industry rather than just something less than that. So I think that's maybe a little bit specifically for BW. I think we've been putting out the same amount of feed or production throughout, because you can't just turn off chickens or cows or pigs or the other species. You need to, you've got them out there, you need to keep them going. So for us, food is an essential service as well, or essential product. I think for us, it's proven to us that it's steady, and we've got work, tomorrow and the next week and next year. So, maybe just, solidified that thought process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, food security, especially through a pandemic, is absolutely huge. I mean, look what happened with toilet paper.
Yeah.
If there's no produce in the store, or the meat counter's empty, that's way more serious. So yeah, definitely food security through this whole thing. I've never felt uneasy about it, but certainly the more stuff we can grow in Ontario, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe a shout out to Sobeys and No Frills in town, because they've both gone above and beyond and have kept open, and they've done the things they need to keep people safe, because I think you certainly don't hear any scary stories from town. I think they've done a lot of the right things to keep things going.
Yeah, they certainly have, with the sanitizing that goes on in there, and making sure that their employees are safe. Can't say enough about how grateful we are for those, essentially high school kids that are working there. There's lots of other employees there as well, but throughout this whole thing, I've been very impressed by the grocery stores in town in terms of keeping the employees safe, keeping the customers safe, and keeping the shelves stocked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
For anyone that might not know, though, BW, you've broke ground on a new mill out by Highway 78. Lots going on up there just besides Stratford Farm Equipment. Could you run us through some of the decisions that were made along the way leading to the new mill, Dave?
Well, so first off, it's how long do I want to work? That was probably one of the things. I'm 58 years old now, and I don't feel old. So I feel like I've got another 10 good years that I want to work, and so that becomes something that we looked at and said, okay, this building downtown is tired. It was built in 1904. We have a lot of wooden bins, and over the time they shrink. There's cracks, there's dust, and that has been something. We've seen good growth in we do a lot of dairy cow business, so feeding cows for milk. We do a lot of dairy goat business, feeding goats for goat's milk. We do a lot of feeding layer hens, so eggs, and we do a lot of broiler chickens, which is the Swiss chalet, or the chickens that the poultry meat. So, we've seen a lot of growth on something like that. We're in a good location as far as New Hamburg goes, with relation to the livestock population in Ontario. We probably are in the middle of the 5 most livestock dense counties in Ontario. So count Oxford, Perth, Waterloo, Huron, Wellington, Middlesex, and surrounding. This is where the populations are. So we've got good access to our market. We've got good access to raw material, whether it be corn or wheat or any of those types of things that are grown locally, or some of these places where you buy bakery meal and other things. We're kind of centrally located that way. So we've got a good spot that way. So, this is something that has been a dream of mine. The first time we looked at building was 2006, 2007. Didn't happen then, but you keep working on something like that. So we needed to know that the market was there. We needed to know that we had raw material. The desire, and then make sure you can get the financing and get that part done, because that's a significant piece of it. But we've been fortunate enough to have some good and steady years. We've got a good staff and good people working here that, you know, we wouldn't do it without them. So, you know, got a good sales team. We've got good organization on our transportation and on our production and the admin side. So, you know, it's a case of, okay, we've got a good team. Let's try and take this to the next level, because we have exceeded, and, you know, I think from a production perspective, we're, you know, doing more out of this old mill than it should be doing. It's tired and it's out of capacity. So I think that's part of it. And let's face it, we bring big trucks into downtown. We maybe don't like it as much as other people don't like us doing it, but it is a necessary evil right now. And so, but it's not going to hurt our feelings to not have to bring those trucks downtown anymore. It's time consuming. It's not easy to get around. You know, we can block up streets occasionally. So, you know, it's going to make life a little simpler at the new site. So, and we gain capacity and efficiency.
Yeah. How much capacity are you going to gain? You're doing 250 ton downtown here. What's the size going to be at the new place?
Well, so I would suggest our mill downtown, we've got capacity to produce, you know, 50 to 55,000 ton a year. So 1,000 ton a week, that's, you know, 200 plus ton a day out of here. So we will be able to, the day we start up at the new site, we'll be able to do 2 to 2.5 times the production there in the same time frame that we do here. With some additional investment, it's designed that we should be able to get to 4 or 5 times our current production. So we won't do that right away, and it'll take, you know, more investment, but, you know, it'll be incremental investment at that point. So we should be able to get that done. That may not happen in my career. That may be the next generation that has to do that. So, but yeah, we've seen some growth. We think there's some more growth to be had, and so we'll keep working towards that goal.
But be thankful for the young people that you've got coming through then, Dave?
Well, I am every day, especially if I have problems with my phone. I find somebody that's a generation younger than me and I hand it to them. So,
yeah, fix this.
When do you expect to be in the new facility?
So we started building July 1st of this year, and as of today, we're December 1st of 2020. We're less than 12 months away. We expect to have it up and running in November of 2021. So
very exciting.
Yeah, it's a milestone today because it's less than a year. So
Congratulations.
Well, yeah. So yeah, we've got a good project manager and good contractors that are doing it and have done it before. So we feel pretty confident in their abilities to kind of pull this one together.
In any sort of manufacturing facility, there's a lot of moving parts. So if you've got a good contracting team that's done a few before, I think that's the way to go.
Well, I know from my perspective, I like to think I know how to manufacture and sell feed. I know nothing about building feed mills, and so we hired a project manager that's got a great track record, and he pulled in some people that he's worked with before that he's got confidence with. So my job with the new mill is, you know, watch, pay attention, you know, look at it and make sure I sign the checks at an appropriate time to keep everybody working.
Yeah, keep those construction draws coming.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So in terms of balancing your time at the new mill and the current mill downtown, is your day-to-day impacted much otherwise? Sounds like you're able to primarily focus on the existing business.
Well, there's a lot of what I do is just make sure that we keep running, because right now we're putting a lot of pressure on facility and people here to get done what we're trying to do. And because we're, at capacity, we can't afford downtime. So how do we keep the mill running? How do we get all the feed delivered today that we need to? On a day like today, we had a truck stuck in a driveway, mainly on ice, it packed, and you can't get moving. But, you have those kinds of, day-to-day things that you need to make sure that you get done. And then making sure we don't push employees too hard and everybody gets the time they need. And part of it is we're a family business. We have family and we know they do too. And, we can only ask so much of them, but, everybody has pitched in. But so my job is primarily making sure that, but I pay a lot of attention to what's going on at the Hill. And there's still decisions to be made. We haven't finalized everything yet with, the main part of the mill, and, the equipment has been bought, but there's things that come up all the time. So that is something that we will look at and get looked after.
Yeah, the wellness of employees certainly has maybe been brought to the forefront throughout the pandemic. I know that we've done a lot more than we ever did for employee mental health and just making sure that they feel secure and know that we really care about them and their families and keeping everyone safe. So yeah, overwork is no good. It leads to people making mistakes, and no one wants that. They don't either, of course. So
Nope.
Have you got any time management tricks or tips for us though, Dave? You've got a big project going on.
Well, so part of it is, and I think over time, and it's probably taken me 30 years to kind of learn this, I'm not sure I'm real good at it yet, is delegating. And if you hire good people and give them a job, let them do it. Sometimes I'd like to look over shoulders a little more than I do, but I know that's not productive. I do make a conscious effort to say, okay, this is your job, and then I'm going to get out of there and let you do it how you want to do it, because oftentimes it becomes something that they're doing it better than what I would anyways. And so, just give them some space. The other thing is if I don't give them their space, at some point I'm going to have to do more of it, and I don't need more to do. I don't mind doing less at some points as well.
Sure. Yeah, if you trust your employees because you've got a good team, you can do a lot rather than you doing it all on yourself. So, no, that's important.
And I guess going off of that, with all the time you're saving by delegating, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, you guys have both been involved in family businesses, so I know you understand some of it, but you put in more hours probably than you would, if you're just doing a 9-to-5 kind of a job. So you do have lots of time. We've got Cindy and I have 4 children, and they're all married, and we have 5 grandchildren with the 6th one on the way. So that takes up a lot of time, and it's a lot of enjoyment at this point. We have a daughter and her husband in Kingston, and another daughter and her husband in Toronto. So we have to do a little bit of traveling, and then 2 of them live close by. So that's a lot of what consumes our time is what happens. Got a motorcycle, so Cindy and I enjoy getting out on the bike in the summer. Little bit of boating if we take a week and rent a cottage and do something like that. Curling in the winter. We are involved in our local church as well, so we do some of that. So and then we get to put in our 50 or 60 hours a week at work. So there's always seems to be something to do. So.
Sounds like it. Yep.
On Monday morning, sometimes you blink and it's Friday all of a sudden. It's one of those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
thanks again, Dave, for taking the time and being our first guest here. We really appreciate it. The New Hamburg Board of Trade.
More about BW Feed. We always see your trucks going downtown, and understanding a bit more about the business and the new adventure you guys are taking. It was really informative and cool to hear and listen about.
I will miss the entertainment factor of the trucks trying to get down Mill Street if somebody's parked in the no parking zone over here. It is looking, is he gonna make it? Is he gonna make it? And of course they always seem to. But
well,
yeah,
that you just brought up one of my pet peeves. Beside the commerce, there's clearly a no parking sign that people are more than willing to pull up and park there. And that has caused us more grief. But give us a year and then we won't have to do it. Just probably a couple final notes that I should mention. Number one, we are not leaving the downtown right away because budgetary reasons. We are just building the bulk production facility, and most of our administration and retail sales. So if somebody wants to buy a bag or two of layer feed, for instance, will continue to be downtown. We're going to operate out of the current office and warehouse for the time being until we get the established enough up there and can go ahead and build and do that. So that is one thing. The second thing, and then I missed saying this earlier. So you asked, what goes into making that decision. It also means having that next generation that's interested in getting involved in the business. And so son Chad has started working at VW in 2020. And, while it's not, completely done, there is intent that, he's interested in staying involved. And so that makes it more exciting for Cindy and I to move forward with a project of this scope.
Absolutely. Yeah, the succession plan certainly keeps the fire under you for maybe a little bit longer than you would have thought, but at the end of the day, you're happy to do it for your family.
No, absolutely. Well, and for everything, it's still got to make sense, but it's not a bad reason. It's a little bit of motivation.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we wish Chad all the best as well, as he's at BW now for about a year. And what a year to get involved in a business, eh?
Lots going on.
No doubt.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us today.
Right.
Again, great to hear from you and know more about you.
Thanks for you two for doing this. I think Board of Trade needs some young ideas, and I think you two will keep that going. So congratulations and good luck.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.